This is the SIUE Beat, a weekly program exploring the lives and the work of the people of Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the SIUE Beat, the show that explores issues and ideas on the campuses of Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. I'm Kevin Leonard, the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, and I'm very pleased to be here today with Dr. Sorin Nastasia, an Associate Professor in the Department of Applied Communication and the Director of the Bachelor's Degree Program in International Studies. Dr. Nastasia earned a bachelor's degree in philology and a master's degree in American Cultural Studies, both from the University of Bucharest, a master's degree in the management of international transactions from the Academy of Economic Studies in Bucharest, a master's degree in public relations from the National University for Political Studies and Public Administration in Bucharest, and a doctorate in communication and public discourse from the University of North Dakota. He joined the SIUE faculty as an assistant professor in 2009 and was awarded tenure and promoted to the rank of associate professor in 2016. Dr. Nastasia's research focuses on international and global public relations, information warfare, responses to disasters and crises, visual communication, and portrayals of underprivileged populations. Welcome to the SIUE Beat, Dr. Nastasia.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, let's begin by having you tell our audience a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up and how did you become interested in communication?
Well, I am originally from Romania in Eastern Europe. I came to the US to pursue my PhD, and I'm a proud US citizen today. I grew up in a city of about 80,000 people named Târgoviște, situated in the southern region of Romania named Valahia or Muntenia, which means the country of the mountains, right? Approximately an hour from Bucharest, which is the capital of Romania. Târgoviște, where I was born and lived till I went to college, is a historical city and used to be the capital of Valahia between the 14th and the 17th century. As a child, playing on the ruins of the former princely court in my hometown and imagining the lives of long-gone local rulers, I became interested in historical developments, the literature evoking such historical figures, and cultures in general. During my childhood, I thought I would go into the medical field, which is why I went to a high school specializing in nurse training. However, at some point I realized that I loved the humanities too much to not study them in college. My parents were both teachers, and they instilled in me a passion for education as a means not only for gaining the knowledge needed in a profession, but also for transcending space, time, and historical circumstances. I was born at a time when Romania was still under the communist totalitarian regime brought about by Soviet troops after World War II, and I lived during my early youth through the tumultuous times immediately after the fall of communism, and these occurrences sparked my interest in using critical thinking and ethical action for examining and addressing societal problems. In college, I studied languages and literatures and focused on how social structures impact cultural developments, as well as how cultural developments in their turn contribute to changing society, politics, and forms of government. At the time when I went to college in the early 1990s, communication was not an area of study yet, as it was still associated with the propaganda that the communist regime had used to control the population. As such, I only became aware of and interested in communication studies after college and after my first master's degree, as a professional having to handle public-facing information and communication aspects of public institutions for which I worked.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, as I mentioned in the introduction, and as you sort of reiterated in your answer there, you earned 3 master's degrees before you ended up coming to the United States to pursue your doctoral studies. So how did your graduate study in Romania influence your decision to work toward a doctorate?
Well, let's see what that entailed. I pursued each of the master's degree I undertook in Romania mainly for practical purposes. After I earned my college degrees, I started working as an English teacher in a high school in my hometown, but I quickly acknowledged that the respective career was insufficiently in tune with my aspirations to contribute to understanding and addressing the problems of today's world. When I found out that some of my professors from college had studied a master's degree in American Cultural Studies in collaboration with faculty from several U.S. universities, I was excited for the opportunity to learn more about the development and current state of U.S. democratic institutions and practices, so I applied, got accepted, and pursued the new program. Afterwards, I worked briefly for the Embassy of the Philippines in Romania prior to being hired as a counselor for the Ministry of Culture of Romania. My work involved communication and event organizing for maintaining the bilateral relations of Romania with various nations and with European Union bodies, which at the time were guiding Romania's preparation for joining the EU. I had, for example, opportunities to devise materials and activities for Romania's participation in cultural fairs in countries such as Portugal and India, to represent Romania at EU accession negotiations focused on cultural aspects in Brussels, as well as to help manage a large EU grant, 2 million euros, for readying the country's cultural institutions for Romania's EU membership. When I enrolled in a graduate program in the international relations at the Academy of Economic Studies in Bucharest, it was with the specific intention to increase my level of expertise in how to manage international engagements between nations, and in particular those linked to cultural affairs. Shortly after, I was invited to join the team of professionals of the Ministry of Education of Romania, which was also in the process of preparing for the EU accession. My work as a senior counselor for the Ministry of Education continued to involve preparation for events such as international fairs, but it had an even clearer focus on the relations of the institution with its various stakeholders. My job title included, for the first time, public relations in it, and at the time I was also enrolled in the master's program in communication and public relations at the National University for Political Studies and Public Administration in Bucharest in order to refine my PR capabilities. By the time I had earned my third master's degree, I was eager to further broaden my professional horizons by pursuing a PhD, and after my wife Diana took the opportunity to come to the United States on a Fulbright scholarship, I decided it was also the right time for me to study abroad. My wife and I both pursued the PhD program in Communication and Public Discourse at University of North Dakota in parallel, while also teaching as graduate assistants, doing professional work for various campus units, and raising our 2 daughters.
Oh, wow. So was there a pivotal moment in which you realized you wanted to devote your career to research and teaching in public relations?
Yes, but as I mentioned, my interests in studying specific areas of knowledge have evolved based on considerations related to professional practice, and my career plans have also been shaped at the intersection of theoretical perspectives and practical applications. When I worked for the Ministry of Culture and then the Ministry of Education of Romania, I had not only opportunities to be at the core of activities focused on presenting the respective institutions accurately and effectively to their target publics and the general public in domestic and international settings, but also the possibility to reflect on what it means for an organization to convey information that is compelling as well as ethical. I used my graduate studies in international relations and then in public relations in Romania to examine issues related to how cultural and educational institutions can survive and thrive in the transition out of communism, and more broadly in any transition due to the fast-paced transformations required in the context of globalization. Prior to pursuing my PhD in the United States, I collaborated with the university in Romania to transform a training experience for administrators of cultural institutions, offered through the EU grant program I helped manage, into a permanent academic experience in the form of a master's program, and I briefly taught in that program. As a student enrolled in a PhD program in the United States, I spent time and energy analyzing the ways in which organizations can use new technologies that allow for the integration of text, visuals, and interactive features to connect with publics, and I also focused on the differences in both defining public relations and conceptualizing what public relations practices entailed between different regions of the world, specifically between Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and the United States. As a graduate teaching assistant at UND during my doctoral studies and as a faculty member at SIUE following my PhD, teaching and research have been intermingled for me with professional practice, seeking practical solutions to communication issues, and assessing the ethics of professional conduct. As a graduate student, I not only taught public relations courses, but I also did public relations work for the graduate school, the Center for Community Engagement, and the housing office on campus. Today at SIUE, a large portion of my teaching is dedicated to guiding senior assignment activities, which for public relations entails student teams working with real-life client organizations to plan and implement campaigns with culminating events. My interest in professional practice is also the key reason why I have become deeply invested in service activities, which included being the president of the Faculty Senate a few years ago and currently being the president of the CAS Congress.
All right. So were there important individuals who encouraged and supported you as you pursued your career in communication studies?
Yes, I owe my passion for education and ethical professional practice to my parents, first of all. Pursuing a PhD program in parallel with my wife meant that I had the constant support of a peer who understood exactly what I was going through. And I continued to find strength for my professional pursuit in my family life. Several of my professors in the PhD program at UND, and in particular Dr. Lana Racco, who was my advisor, had a great impact on the ways in which I think of public relations as being not only a professional practice of use for organizations, but also as a communication activity with potential for raising awareness about social injustice and doing advocacy to right societal wrongs.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, let's talk more about your research. What are the questions that you've sought to answer through your research?
Well, the questions I ask in my research are practical inquiries whose answers can help understand, address, provide relief, and hopefully offer solutions for critical and oftentimes dire problems of our time. One of the key questions I ask across studies I have engaged in is: how can professional communicators working on behalf of organizations, whether business organizations, non-profit organizations, government agencies, or international organizations, ensure the success of the respective organizations while also securing a transparent communication process, accuracy of information, ethical organizational practices, and public benefit? We all know that organizations aim to be effective, but what are the ways in which organizations can be effective as well as ethical, and how can professional communicators specifically contribute to not just branding organizations, but also holding them accountable for their mission, vision, goals, and duties to stakeholders? Another question I ask in my research is: how can public relations and strategic communication practitioners help raise awareness about societal problems? For example, public health issues, information ecology aspects, environmental issues, and how can they contribute to coalitions seeking solutions that are productive as well as fair to address such issues?
Now, those are really fascinating questions. So how have you gone about finding the answers to those questions?
Well, a project I'm particularly proud of is the sabbatical research I pursued on the recent and increasingly tighter interconnections between public relations and social justice advocacy. In this research, I looked at how, just a few years ago, social justice advocates were largely perceived in business settings as obstacles to organizational objectives, yet today many businesses hire such advocates for supporting connecting with audiences. By examining approximately 2,500 news media articles and the online communication materials of over 500 business organizations, I explored the changing features of the publics and their values that have driven the turn in business organizations' approach to advocacy and increasing adoption of advocacy-related practices. Also, because of the broad scope of my areas of inquiry in research, I have often engaged in collaborative research projects rather than individual projects. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, I contributed to several collaborative studies on the economic as well as social impact of the pandemic, especially on vulnerable populations such as minorities and children. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, I was a co-editor for 2 issues of the premier communication journal in France, SHS, on new types of information warfare and their international impact. I am currently in the course of proposing a collaborative volume, including studies aimed at assessing communication practices in Eastern Europe 35 years after the fall of communism.
Oh my! So what conclusions have you drawn? That's a big set of topics and issues. What conclusions have you drawn from your body of research?
Well, it's always harder to draw conclusions, but one of the key conclusions I have drawn from research projects is that in a world that currently faces several severe crises that may even hinder human existence, accuracy of information and ethical communication practices are more important than ever. Addressing issues pertaining specifically to communication in international and global settings is also of key importance for various forums and organizations and publics. Interestingly, in the study on the interconnections between public relations and social justice advocacy, key findings were that younger generations, millennials, Gen Zers, strongly demand from business organizations from which they purchase products or services to take fair stands on issues ranging from employee pay to the treatment of ethnic minorities to environmental sustainability. This is the main reason why it has become a business practice to announce at least and in some cases also to document a change from corporate social responsibility, the traditional CSR, to corporate social justice, a new and arguably much needed CSJ. The collections of studies on information warfare in the context of the Ukraine war, published in the journal SHS, for example, have examined how the deadliest conflict in Europe since World War II is also the first war in which algorithms and TikTok videos are deployed alongside fighter planes and tanks. The communication outcomes of the war are mixed, as technology has allowed for the fast dissemination of information from news media professionals, the viral spread of imagery from amateur communicators, as well as flexibility and efficiency in regards to propagandistic messaging and outreach. For example, disinformation campaigns stemming from Russia are linked to fears of Ukrainian immigrants in a number of Western European countries, as well as to concerns that Ukraine's resistance to Russia has worsened food shortage in Africa because of their production of wheat. So these are just a few examples.
Wow. Okay. That's really great to think about those conclusions. What are would you say there are broader implications of your research that you can speak to?
Well, both my research and my teaching aim to have implications for both theory and practice. In studies I co-authored on the implications of the COVID-19 pandemic, key findings were that children needed to find reliable information from a variety of sources, including prominently quality educational media, in order to cope with the uncertainty of the situation. For the co-edited special issues for SHS, my co-editor and I have drawn a series of lessons learned from the information warfare, including, for example, that citizen networks, fact-checking mechanisms, and information literacy can help counter disinformation during armed conflict crisis.
Wow. Okay, well, I also wanted to talk with you a little bit about international studies here at SIUE. You've been the program director of that degree program since it was established. So tell us more about the program. When was it established, and what is distinctive about the bachelor's degree program in international studies?
Yes, the International Studies program at SIUE is an interdisciplinary major aimed to prepare students for the exigencies of professional life in a globalized world. The program received Illinois Board of Higher Education approval in 2015 and was launched in 2016. I had the extraordinary honor to be selected to serve as its first director due, I believe, to my vision for ensuring its viability through the utilization of universities' assets, a vigorous promotion strategy, as well as tapping into regional, national, and even international opportunities. In the past 8 years, the program has become programmatically an exceptional interdisciplinary hub within the College of Arts and Sciences for innovative course offerings and research initiatives through an ongoing mechanism of faculty collaborations as well as partnerships with Illinois and Missouri businesses, regional and international nonprofit organizations, and agencies with an international focus. Current faculty affiliates span 22 departments within the College of Arts and Sciences. Community partners also include over 20 organizations. The program has weathered the pandemic well and is currently at over 30 students enrolled, which is a level similar with that before the pandemic. Particularly notable among the program's collaborations have been the 2+2 agreements with 4 regional community colleges, the program's contribution to the approval for SIUE and the launch at SIUE of a Peace Corps training certification, and the establishment of collaborations with other universities regionally and internationally, for example, the European Union Center at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign and international studies programs at several foreign universities. I am proud that the program's graduates are being hired by such organizations as Junior Chamber International and the International Institute in St. Louis. They are pursuing graduate degrees at such higher education institutions as Stanford University and American University, and have received recognition through prestigious awards. For example, one of our students was selected to represent the Council on Foreign Relations St. Louis Committee at the Young Leaders Congress in Washington, D.C. I am also proud to have established International Studies Days at SIUE, for which you so generously helped me with some funding. As this series of events has included hundreds of participants, has brought to SIUE top-level international experts such as from the United Nations, the U.S. Department of State, the various universities, and has added value to the International Studies program, the university as a whole, and the region. In the past year, a group of international studies students have taken the exciting initiative to propose the establishment of an SIUE chapter of Sigma Iota Rho, brief SIR, which is the National Honor Society for International Studies, and the chapter has just been approved both at national level and on campus in fall 2024. So the International Studies program is growing and evolving on an ongoing basis.
Well, that's great, and it's I think you made me aware of the fact that the Honor Society had been established, but
yes.
But let me congratulate you publicly for that.
Thank you.
That's a really good sign, and it also speaks to how involved the students are in developing international studies here.
Yes.
So how's your research related to your teaching?
Well, I try to integrate who I am into my research as well as my teaching. My observations and reflections as a communication and PR practitioner for many years shape how I pursue all aspects of my academic life. Throughout my administrative and academic career, I have been involved in situations requiring critical thinking as well as creative approaches, and taking initiative as well as working collaboratively. These are principles I am trying to pass on to my students. My approach to teaching is to provide support, resources, and mentorship to students with the aim of helping students succeed at the university and further in career settings. I also include hands-on experiences in all of my classrooms due to the preoccupation for practical experience that marks both my research and my teaching. Simple things such as talking about my own experiences as new immigrant and how that impacts my communication patterns can help connect with students in the classroom and perhaps inspire them to examine their own positioning in the world. Engaging students in conversations with experts or simulations of industry practice can also help students grow as persons, emerging professionals, and community members.
Could I get you to say just a little bit more about that connection you establish with your students, and when you talk about your experience as an immigrant to the United States? To me, that I think that's a really important thing, and certainly we most frequently interact when we're talking about international studies. But I am also really aware of your work in terms of research on and working for social justice as well. So can you say a little bit more about how students respond to your sharing your own stories with them?
Oh, they are always fascinated or surprised, because we all have different perceptions that are, unfortunately many times wrong about people that we engage in conversations with. And, an accent sometimes can be something exciting for some people depending on your personality, or it can be, dialogue buster. So I'm trying to make it more interesting for my students, to explain a little bit about the culture, the neighborhood of the country that I came from, how I was influenced by different people, how language played an important role for me, trying to understand other populations. People who come from Europe, if you talk to them, because it's so easy nowadays to go over the borders, especially in the European Union member states, they know 3, 4, 5, 6 languages. And for Romanians, for example, because we have a Latin-based language, a Romance language, we understand easier, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, French, and so on and so forth. So I can't say that I know all those languages, but I can understand a lot. Sure.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing, that that students, when they take a course with you, get a very different perspective than they might get from, taking a course from a professor who grew up in the United States and doesn't have that wealth of experience.
Yes, by the way, I have been through the experience of offering study abroad courses, international public relations, PR, visual communication in 2010 and 2012. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make another group since then. But I tried to offer it a little bit, a few years before the pandemic. Maybe now we will try again. We'll see.
Yes. Well, I hope so. So one final question. What advice would you give to a student who's interested in studying international studies?
Well, I definitely recommend to students who are interested in any aspect of international affairs to check out the International Studies program at SIUE and consider declaring international studies as their major. International studies can easily be pursued as a double major due to the program's flexibility, and the three concentration areas, arts, culture and communication, politics and diplomacy, and development and sustainability, offer opportunities for students with varied interests and abilities. No professional area today could be conceived without reference to international settings, so preparation for international engagements enriches any professional area. I will speak, for example, this Thursday in front of a class of cadets from ROTC because, I remember that we have a former graduate, now Captain Inju Jin, who is from a Korean family, who was adopted into an American family and so on and so forth. And now she has her own family. But she was one of our very successful students in the international studies program. So I want to pitch this to also the cadets from ROTC. This is a possibility for them because they will be required to study abroad for 6 credits and they will be required to know a foreign language level 1 and level 2.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So thank you so much. That sounds like wonderful advice. Thank you, Dr. Sorin Nastasia, for talking with us about your experiences, your research, and your teaching. I look forward to further conversations with you about your research, and I look forward to working with you as we continue to build the program in international studies. And for our listeners, thank you for joining us, and take care.
This has been the SIUE Beat, a production in partnership between the SIUE College of Arts and Sciences and WSIE 88.7 The Sound. All rights reserved.